Good morning, good afternoon. Today we have a special guest speaker, Jeff Jonas. Hi, Jeff. How are you doing today?
Great, man.
Jeff, I want to ask you a series of questions about your career, some professional advice that you can give to my students at Leeds CU. And I'm going to start with introduction. So please tell us what is your current role and tell us a little bit about Sensing.
I'm the founder and CEO of Sensing. We are a company that spun out of IBM. We're focused on something called entity resolution. It's figuring out when two records are around the same person. You have duplicates in your phone. Like the first time you met them, you didn't know their last name. The second time you met them, you got their Yahoo email address, not their phone. But now you have two records. That's an entity resolution problem. And that's what we solve. Companies struggle with that. And we make that easy for programmers.
And I understand there is a demo or something that I can download to resolve that particular problem with my phone book. Is that correct?
Yeah, although I would tell you, I mean, unless you have a lot of problems with duplicates in your address book, and you may, you can export your address book and download our software off the website. But if you want to have a little more fun, if you Google Sensing and PPP for free, you don't even have to give it your email address, so it's not a trick. You can download our application, and you'll find an article for downloading the Sensing desktop app. It all lives on your computer, so no information flows over to us. And 3 files on on PPP loan data. And so you can analyze some PPP loan data from Las Vegas, like right on your laptop, and do some investigation work in like under 30 minutes.
Wow. And how do you get access to this data, Jeff?
Public data.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, all those PPP loans were made public. And then there's a few other data sets that are public as well. So you can start with the PPP loan data, and then we give you 2 other files, and then you can like load them, and it's all public information. So you're playing with real data, and you can really see how entity resolution like finds connections, who's who, who's related to who. You're like, wow, why'd that company get 2 loans for $1 million? Huh?
That thing is a good exercise for my class. Maybe I can download those files and then instead of a quiz or something, they can do this exercise with me. Would you say that's a good idea?
It could be. I mean, it literally is less than 30 minutes. You can really like taste combining data, and then you can imagine what that means to like hunting for bad guys or finding fraud or even cleaning up your marketing list.
Awesome, awesome. I think I'm gonna do that. And speaking of data, one of the things that I read in your website is the name of the technology, NORA, Non-Obvious Relationship Awareness. Can you tell us a little bit more about in a business context? Has it been mentioned in movies or books?
Yeah. Originally it was called the corporate security system when we built it for the casinos because they were trying to they have a list of regulated entities. Like if these people come and get caught in your casino, you're going to lose your gaming license. And so, or get a big fine. So the casinos are like, man, we got to make sure that list of people doesn't show up in our casino. And it was easy until the casinos had 3,000 rooms. And so we built a system called the corporate security system. But the way we built it started finding like things you'd be like, wow, a human probably couldn't have found that. Like once you see it, it's obvious. It's not like you're just saying trust the computer, it's true. You see it and you go, well, that's obvious, but you wouldn't have found it on your own. So we kind of earned the term non-obvious relationship. Actually, I was going to call it non-obvious relationship analytics, but ex-wife number 3, that's pretty funny, suggested I should use the word awareness, which is a way better word. God bless Aline. She's amazing. Anyway, that was my gift from wife 3, was the word awareness. So anyway, it became known as NORA, and it's been written about a bit. It's shown up on a TV show or 2, and it had a nice run. Eventually, that technology we sold to IBM, and it became sold as Identity Insight. And today, Sensing that was my 5th generation of this stuff. And then today, we're on a 6th generation. So
Understand.
we have it sensing.
Understand. And it
Mhm.
also, was it the movie 21 based on this technology about those MIT hackers coming to Las Vegas?
You know, that was a different system we built. It didn't really need very much entity resolution, but that's one of the mini systems we built for casinos that's probably still used by most of the casinos in the world. But
Oh,
as you know, the MIT card count team figured out how to um, make a lot of money really fast, and it created a lot of pain for the casinos. And so we built a software that was used by an investigative organization known as Griffin, and it helped the casinos more quickly identify the MIT card count team. So that was in the book, Bringing Down the House, in the movie 21. By the way, the book is actually quite accurate, although I don't think anybody got beat up, best I can tell. The movie was entirely theater. I took my kids to go see that. And they're like, Daddy, wow. I went, that's not even true.
it's
So you
good
got to
for
be careful what you believe
Hollywood.
in.
And I wanted to ask you because at some points in your career, in your professional life, you needed to decide staying with a big company like IBM or creating your own. What is the major decision for my students that are going to be entrepreneurs, that are going to work for larger
Mhm.
companies? What is the decision points that they have to consider when making this decision on their lives?
Well, if you can, you should do something you love. If you can find something that you love and it's with other people who are kind and you're culturally aligned with them and their ethics and their goals, it's great to work with a big team. It's great to work on a big platform with a big company, you know. But I would tell you to pick what you love first. It depends where you're at in life. You know, if you're further down the road in life and you really can't take a big risk, like in the early days, you know, I didn't do so well. I had to live in my car. Like it'd be hard to do that, you know, raising a family, right?
Yeah.
So if you go the entrepreneurial route, you have to be able to stomach, you know, good days and bad days, and you might have to live in your car. But I did it because I was just obsessed, and I was more interested in loving what I do than anything else. And the fact it's valuable and people send money is like a miracle because I'd be doing this kind of work if it even didn't pay.
But I've seen that you have done successful. You live in your boat, you go to all these places. Do you think a route to success is just what you say, doing what you love, or you're thinking of the paycheck, the mortgage, all these financial responsibilities? What is the advice that you will give to some
I'm
students?
a bad example because I'm pretty irresponsible. Okay, I'll admit it. Don't tell anyone.
Okay, we will not tell the
I'm pretty
students.
frivolous. I personally have just found things I really enjoyed working on and then work on them obsessively all the time.
Okay.
I love my work is like a hobby. So when I'm hanging out with some friends and we're in a faraway place, they're like, why are you working on a Saturday?" I'm like, "I'm not working. It's a hobby." Like when I have
You're
spare time, I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna work." So it doesn't mean the same thing to me. That doesn't come easily to everybody, but if you can find that, it makes life a lot more rich because you
yes,
spend so
absolutely.
much time working. So if you can find something that you love. I got one piece of advice about this because I have a friend that was super successful. He sold a company for about $1 billion, and he told me, you know, it was a shoe related company, okay? And he goes, I I hated it. I go, how did you stay there so long? Like, what would I tell people if they can't find a job they love? He goes, I hated the job I had at the shoe company. He goes, but every year I saw a different job at that company that I liked more. And I kept going, I want to do that. I want to do this. And he ended up being a senior there. He ended up, his focus was on performance management, like getting the organization to focus on the right metrics to get the right behavior. And he focused on culture. And he ended up loving his job there at the shoe company. And I'm like, wow, there's hope for people.
So that's the trick. Speaking of loving your job and finding the right place in a corporation, do you interview people? Like maybe you want to interview a data scientist in my class. What kind of skills, traits would you look in this person? Not just look at his resume. during the interview?
The kind of company that we are is we have a developer tool that's headless, so it's got no graphical user interface. It's an API, literally, that programmers like connect to. So the most of the engineers that we have are developers. Are the hardest core stuff is because we're a low latency, high speed transaction engine. Our core stuff is in C++. And then around that, we have all these projects in GitHub where we build things in Java and Python, and we open source all of that, and we share that code with the world so they can consume our C++ core. So when we're looking for engineers, we're looking for those languages. We're looking for a DevOps and cloud experience like AWS, Azure, or
IBM.
Google Cloud or IBM. Absolutely. OpenShift. In fact, we're certified on Open.
So tell us more about the skill sets. You're looking for that
Yeah.
core language.
You
How
know,
about
C,
one?
Java, Python, skilled in AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, OpenShift. You know, those cloud skilled in those environments is helpful. Um, we hire people in performance testing, where you're regression testing and looking to see how the performance is changing as we do new release cycles, at least every month. We do a little bit on graphical interfaces with JavaScript. Not too much. We open source all this stuff so that others can just, use it.
What kind of activities, extracurricular activities, catch your eyes when you're doing these interviews? Remember, these are college graduates with very little work experience.
Dedicating time to nonprofits is great. For me, it's always fun to see somebody that has picked up something that is, they've had to work at it to become good at something, whether it's drums or guitar, whether it's I know a 20-something-year-old that literally studies humor from the 1400s. Okay. Like books from the 1400s. He reads them and studies their humor.
Yeah.
And then he read a book this thick on the founding of Singapore. Okay. So when you find somebody that has picked something to kind of get a little deep in, it shows that they can stay on top of something and ride it for a while.
Yeah.
Whether it's a second language that they didn't learn at home, but they just learned. One of my kids went to China. He couldn't even say hello on the plane. He stayed a year and a half. He come back, he'd like fluent.
Oh my
Um, but yeah, that shows that somebody's picked something that they've wanted to do and
yeah.
then did it, overcame that hump. I played guitar, took years to get good enough where I could feel like it was fun, So dedication to things.
Okay. And I asked you this question before when we were in the classroom. What is that skill or class that you remember all these years after you graduated that is still helpful in your job that you pick up in school?
I gotta tell you, man, I did a summer project in high school, and I turned it in. It was a programming project, and I turned it into my teacher, and he goes, "This is pretty useful. Do you mind if I see if anybody wants to buy a copy or two?" I'm like, "Really?" And then he sold 2 copies, and one was to the Los Angeles School District. Sold my
Oh,
software to law. Like, I'm like 17. At that point, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You can have fun. It's just for fun. I mean, I did it because of not the extra points, but for fun. And then people send money. That's kind of reset my brain. I'm like, okay, you can do fun things, and then people send money.
that's amazing, Jeff. One last question. People probably didn't stop watching the video, but I want to ask a question that is all the way to the end. And we were talking about, does data lie?
Oh, I want to answer that. Well, a very it used to happen where people would go, yeah, but sometimes the data's wrong or it's a lie. Then what? And I always remember thinking, you can't help that. You know, that's just something you have to live with. Like I never had a good answer. But then as I got more mature and thought was more thoughtful about the response, I have an information theory, holds up pretty good, uh, on how to find lies in data. I'll give you an example.
Tell me.
Uh, if I told you I was 55, with the other evidence of just looking at me, you might figure that might be true, but it could be a lie. I could have lied by 1 or 2 or 3 years. Okay? But how would you know? In fact, if you get a piece of data and it's a lie and you have no other data, you have no way to know if it's a lie. The only way to find a lie in data is to find some other piece of data that like contradicts it, you know?
Huh?
Right? So
Yeah.
if I looked 22 and I said I was 55, your other piece of data would be, hey man, you don't look 55. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when people lie in systems, they make a claim that's not true. And the question is, what other data can you find that you can compare it to flush it out as a lie? And so that's how errors and that's how lies get found.
That's a good one, Jeff. Well, this has been a great interview, Jeff. And like I said to my students, you do answer emails. Is that correct? Can I share your email with my?
Absolutely. I do my best to answer every email I get from everybody.
Yes, yes, you do.
Uh,
So, Jeff,
especially from your class. So if they say it's from your class, but I really work, it might take me a few days to respond, but Jeff at Senzing or Jeff at Jeff Jonas. And
thank
yeah,
you.
I'd welcome that. Yeah.
I'll stop the recording now. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you.